how have extremist groups across ideological spectrums framed climate change and environment in their discourse? So we know that, of course, both the far right and the far left have weaponized climate and environment for, propagating their extremist narratives. Are there distinct rhetorical patterns among the right and left? If you can just give us an overview of where the different groups stand when it comes to climate and environment.
Thank you. I think it's a great question to kind of start the conversation. At the same time, it is a question loaded with certain concepts that, academics are all about unpacking the concepts and engaging with them. I will not do that extensively, I promise, but I think it is, and it may definitely be useful to perhaps set the goalposts for this particular conversation about ideology, right, left, and especially the climate crisis and climate change as such. We definitely do live in times of crisis, whether it's a poly-crisis that has been continuing for decades and, climate crisis being arguably the most pressing threat to the whole of humanity and non-human actants on this planet, at least. Definitely, that's something that is very difficult to kind of dispute. While obviously there is no single solution to this crisis, it is expected that the solution or the set of solutions will have to entail a significant shift away from the fossil fuels and also the industries based on these fuels. Moreover, this perspective shift is probably, if it ever is to happen, would have to entail a significant change in how we produce and consume. And I think that this move away from fossil fuels being the first and the most important step, even though not an easy one, moving towards the renewables is the first and the most important step. As I said, something that the climate science has well established. And this all may seem relatively straightforward. And as I said, climate science is in fact quite straightforward and relatively unanimous when it comes to or majoritarian when it comes to the diagnosis of the problem and the prescription of the solutions. Yet the governments around the world do not seem to care much about this, right? And instead cracking down on climate activism around the globe. And this crackdown is not only happening in the authoritarian regimes or non-democratic regimes or in those spaces and geographies that we would kind of tend to associate with draconian, harsh, and authoritarian politics, but instead in some of the world, this is all happening in some of the world's most renowned Western democracies, such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Norway. A recent study, I think it was published by the University of Bristol, has found that the British police arrest environmental protesters at nearly 3 times the global average rate. And this is quite disturbing to know. Why is it that I mentioned this in the first place as a kind of an attempt to set the goalpost? It very much matters. The reason why I kind of wanted to start off with this is that it very much matters on how we define the mainstream responses to climate change, and based on that mainstream, how is it that we define what is radical and what is extremist? Here again, it may be useful to introduce a separation between mainstream and extremism. It would be easy to say extremists use violence, but there are different forms of violence. Extinguishing someone's tire, to kind of use the name of a climate activist group, is not the same as killing a number of people, environmental activists or people belonging to the fossil fuel industry. It doesn't matter. So the separation is indeed becoming quite blurred. And what I think gets lost in these in these attempts to set these goalposts is the concept of radicalism. I think that we need more radical solutions. I think that climate crisis has accentuated the need for radical politics, radical solutions, and radical activism as such. And departing from that, we also need to understand these possible radical responses that come from the right and from the left side of the ideological spectrum. Obviously, not all radical responses and not all of radical politics are good. In fact, most of this radical politics spectrum is harmful. But it is kind of also important to understand that we will need, when I say we, I'm thinking of as I said, humanity as a whole will definitely need radical politics to kind of be in a position where we can kind of survive is maybe too harsh of a term, but be in a position to live a more sustainable future.